Hello and welcome. My name is Jean Smith and I work as part of the accommodation development team in Fáilte Ireland. I'm here on behalf of Tara Curry, who sends her apologies as she cannot attend today. As I am part of the accommodation development team, if you don't mind, I would like to also take this opportunity to remind you that while the renewals are ongoing at the moment, but while the statutory renewals are closed, the non-statutory renewals for the individual self-catering properties and those that are approved under the welcome standards are still open. So if any of you have still to complete your renewals, please go to the trade portal as usual. And remember, for this year, Fáilte Ireland has waived the renewal fee so that there is nothing to pay for your 2021 approval. Another housekeeping item I would like to remind you of today is that the refund for the current year is still in progress. So for those of you that have provided your bank details, you should have received your full refund by now. For those of you who have yet to provide your bank details, please do so by going to the secure trade portal. If you need assistance with either the renewals or with the refund, you can contact our dedicated quality assurance customer support team on their number 1890 697 000, or email your query to them at qualityassurance@fáilteireland.ie, and their numbers are there for you. Now, that's the housekeeping out of the way. So back to today, and just to say that we work closely with the Irish Self-Catering Federation to continue to support and develop the self-catering sector. And the Irish Self-Catering Federation also bring to our attention issues and comments raised by your sector, which help us to identify ways in which we can provide support to you, such as today's webinar. While it's a pity that under the circumstances we cannot meet up in person, we are all learning to live and to work in a new way, which is why you're all here today, to find out more about good practice contract management in self-catering properties, which Julie O'Brien will be presenting. Now, before that, I'm just going to hand you over to my colleague Amanda Horn, who will be your moderator for the day, and she will go through some housekeeping items with you now. So over to Amanda. Thank you.
Thanks, Jean, and thank you for that introduction. And you're all very welcome today to our session. We're delighted you could take time out of your busy schedules to be with us. We do hope you find the session today useful. And I suppose, as Jean said, it's that close relationship with the Self-Catering Federation that has helped us put together today's session for you. So I just want to warmly welcome you, thank the Quality and Standards team and all of the team at the Irish Self-Catering Federation in the planning and preparation for today. I'd also like to thank you for coming on and for your support in helping us create the content today. I know many of you in your registration submitted advanced questions, which has really helped us focus the subject content priorities that we're going to talk about today. And I'm delighted in that sense to be able to welcome on board today our expert for today, which is Julie O'Brien, who I'll introduce in just a moment. But just to explain, in the context of keeping the session as engaging as possible, while many of you have submitted advanced questions, we'll get to as many of those as we can over the course of the session. If you have any burning questions that arise over the course of the webinar, which you feel that we haven't adequately addressed in the content, we invite you to submit them into the live question box to the right of your screen, and we'll do our very best to get through as many of them as possible. I'm joined today by my colleague Michael Brady, who will be directing those questions through to me. Again, just please keep your questions to the subject matter we're discussing today, and if you have other questions not related to today's session, we'll be happy to take them and pass them to the Irish Self-Catering Federation, or if they relate to ourselves in Fáilte Ireland Quality and Standards, we'll direct them to the Quality and Standards team, so we'll revert to you after the session today. Also, just to say, to keep the session as interactive as possible, and to allow you sense check really where your business is at and how its approach matches or compares with other people and other peers on this webinar, we're going to invite you to participate in various audience poll questions throughout the session. And all answers you submit, you have our assurance, are anonymous, but it allows us collectively give you a sense of the collective responses of the participants on the webinar today. So watch out for those. They'll be happening throughout today's webinar. And finally, just to note that after the session today, we will send you tomorrow an email with a link to the recording of the session in case you want to watch it back or share it maybe with family members or business colleagues, and also give you a copy of the PowerPoint from today's session. And that will also include a sample contract terms and conditions for you to review if you're building or rebuilding or refreshing your own. And of course, we do recommend that anything of that nature, that you should also ensure that it's overseen by your own business legal advisor. So without further ado, I'd now welcome and introduce Julie O'Brien, our expert for today. Julie has over 25 years experience in tourism and hospitality, and I suppose her expertise in contracting began when she was a professional travel buyer, both as a tour operator and a DMC, where she was responsible for supplier and client contracting for the international market. And Julie also worked for a number of years in director roles where she managed contracting for hotels and self-catering apartments in Ireland and abroad. So Julie comes to us with a lot of understanding of the sector and the market that you're dealing with, or the markets, I should say, that you're dealing with. In recent years, Julie manages the contracting training for Fáilte Ireland, and following COVID-19, Julie also managed contractual guidelines for the DMCs, the destination management companies, and PCOs, including addressing areas on clauses around force majeure, which is probably an area that none of us knew a whole lot about before COVID hit, or unless maybe you would have dealt with it before when we had other force majeure events like ash cloud, etc. But I'd now like to hand over to Julie. Julie, you're very welcome, and we're delighted to have you with us today.
Oh, thank you so much, Amanda and Jean. What a thorough and warm welcome for everyone. So I would just like to say, of course, we would all love to be meeting up in person, but actually it's an honor for me to welcome you virtually into the office in my own home, in fact. And of course, today we're going to be looking at a topic that's really important. So contracting, good practice, contract management in self-catering, and specifically for you, the people who are listening in today, for the Irish Self-Catering Federation. So contracting, there's a good bit of stuff to be understood there, and of course it's all about keeping our house in order. So we're going to give you some tips and insights on that today, and I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback in that regard. So the kind of topics that we're going to cover today are: number one, contracting for diverse opportunities and sales channels. Number two, managing customers and cancellations through COVID-19. Number three, the management of OTA contracts and clauses. And of course, by OTA, we mean resellers like online travel agents, for example, Airbnb and Booking.com, and there'll be lots of others that you work with and are aware of. We're going to look at, for topic number four, managing bookings for direct customers. Number five, setting terms and conditions and cancellation policies. Number six, we look at how to create a booking form, and I'll be giving you a template for that. And finally, how to communicate your offer to drive sales for 2021. So we're looking at the scenario that we're in, that we've just recently moved through, but also we're always going to keep an eye on the future. So let's begin now by taking a look at contracting for diverse opportunities and sales channels. So think of you and your business wherever you are, in your living room or in your office, and think about you as a business. And when you have any kind of a business, and of course here we're talking specifically about self-catering businesses, we bring these businesses to market. And when we bring them to market in diverse ways. For example, we can encourage direct consumers to book our businesses. We could give our inventory, or part of our inventory, to another party, like a reseller, such as we said a moment ago, online travel agents, OTAs like Booking.com or Airbnb. We could even give some of that inventory to another buyer type, another partner called a tour operator. So just look at those three boxes that are on your screen now: direct to consumer, online through an online travel agent, or offline, maybe through a tour operator. They're just 3 of the many opportunities that we could potentially work with. So depending on the customer type, the opportunity that we are working with, we will require diverse strategies. So diverse opportunities require diverse strategies. This is the most important thing to keep in mind when we go to contracting. Therefore, depending on who we are getting the business opportunity from, our contracts will need to be addressed in a different way. So let's flesh that out a little bit now. If I'm creating a contract, I am the business and I am now engaging with my direct customer. What do I need to do? Well, it's my job as the business to agree the rates and supply the contract, the terms and conditions of doing this piece of business directly with the customer. I agree those, I submit them to the customer agrees, and on we go. So what is my role in that scenario? Well, my role is to give crystal clear instruction. Okay, let's move on now. I am a business and I am working in partnership with another business like an online travel agent, an OTA. Like we said, Booking.com or Airbnb, there are many other companies that exist out here in the world. This is, of course, an example of an indirect sales channel. So when I'm dealing with a partner like this, and in the case of OTAs, most often I am dealing with a rolling contract. That means I could create my contract, I could have created 5 years ago, I could create it today. And that contract keeps moving forward. And I need to keep on top of new contractual conditions that are brought into that contractual partnership. So in that scenario, my role is different. In that scenario, my role is to be aware of the clauses in the online travel agent contract. So I have to keep informed and updated. So I'm aware of what I'm signing up to, what I am agreeing to. In the case of the travel trade, for example, a tour operator, again, I'm dealing with an indirect sales channel, but contracting also works differently in this world. Very often it's an annual contract, sometimes biannual, but at the end of its duration, every 1 year or every 2 years, we tend to take a look at the contractual conditions again. So in that scenario, my role is to know how to negotiate rates and clauses. So look, we've hardly moved on from our first few slides and we're realizing that there are different scenarios here. Of course, bear in mind, when I am a business, I can bring what I have for sale to market via direct sales channels. In direct sales channels, I reach the customer directly. Therefore, my communication is directly with the customer. Or I can bring my inventory, my business to market via indirect sales channels like we see here, online through, for example, an online travel agent, or offline through, for example, a tour operator. In that case, of course, the end customer is coming through someone else, through an intermediary. So the contractual obligations and the way the contracts are framed thereby naturally changes. So I want you to keep that in mind as we move through today's session. So we are going to focus today largely on direct customer contracts, and we will also be referencing a contract sold that we engage in via resellers, for example, online travel agents. So what's our job when we're engaging with direct customers? So I am the business all the time, bearing in mind the responsibility lies with me. I make all of the decisions, okay? My job is to be proactive if I want direct customers. They start to come to me. I start building up a database, of course, according to GDPR compliance, a story for another day, but we have to be sure that our customers opt in, that they want to be part of our communications. So I begin to collate their data for customers who do want to be part of what I would consider, what I like to think of as being my family or club. I am the business. I create a family or club with customers who have the potential to become repeat, and other direct customers who might be one-off, okay? With my customers, I look after them. I want to make sure that they have an amazing time, because of course if they have an amazing time, they'll go and tell all their friends and their family, positive word of mouth. They may come back to me again themselves, but I'll start to get a rising tide of bookings through this positive feedback. It is important to say that through direct customers, we tend to get a lot of individual unique bookings. So one booking for Mr. Ryan, one booking for, Mary Jones, and on we go, individual unique bookings. So bringing them together into a family and club is a task in its own right. Now let's think about contracting via a reseller, such as an online travel agent. In this case, what am I doing? I am leaning on a partner, okay? I have one contract with one organization, and that organization has the potential to bring me lots of customers. Those customers, I also want to make sure that they have an amazing time, that they spread positive word of mouth, and that they may become repeat customers too. And who knows, in the future, they may even choose to book with me directly. So you're seeing different scenarios, different dynamics, and I need to understand how to play this game to grow bookings and to contract depending on the different scenario that is at play. So as we said, just to recap there, direct customers in this relationship, I, the business, take responsibility. I manage the relationship. I am clear on my role here. When I am dealing with indirect partners, like, for example, an online travel agent, I am a partner in this relationship. I therefore need to understand my role there. So all of this thinking and clarity around this thinking plays a really important function in how we then engage with contracts. So I know we've arrived now after our introduction into our first poll, so I'm going to call on my colleague Amanda regarding this.
Thanks, Julie. So this is everybody's opportunity to get involved here with your questions. As I say, your answers are anonymous. The first question we have is, do you have contractual conditions that are accessible during the booking, which customers must accept before confirming the booking? So your options here are: yes, our contractual conditions must be accepted in order to book; no, accepting our contractual conditions is not mandatory; or no, we don't have any contractual conditions. So while we actually capture the results from that question and from that poll, Julie, we just have one question just in there from an audience member, just saying, the majority of my customers are repeat visitors from over the years. Do I really need legal contracts?
Okay, so whoever that person is, thank you so much for that question. And it's a really interesting one, because of course, customers that come to us after, over many years actually become almost like our friends. We really get to know them. I would say it like this: not having a contract works in the world where everything is okay, where everything goes to plan. But the moment something doesn't go okay, and sure, we're living a year where this is just so clear. So say the COVID-19 pandemic happens. We've had, of course, other scenarios like this in Ireland, reaching from 9/11, that tragic event, and also the ash cloud. The moment something like that happens, both the business and particularly the customer tends to want to know what their rights are. So I am really an advocate of always making sure that we have terms and conditions in order, even for customers who've gotten to know us really well over the years. And I would also say that in my experience, customers really do like to get clear direction from the business. So often I find that they really appreciate this.
Okay, thanks for that, Julie. So Colette, we might take the results of that first poll, if you don't mind. Okay, that's great to see a strong performance there from businesses about contractual conditions being required to be accepted by the client before they book or on booking. Some still have the conditions, but not necessarily require the client to accept them, which really is what draws the client's attention maybe to the conditions. And then there's still a small percentage there who don't have contractual conditions. So hopefully within today's webinar, you'll see the advantage of having those clear contractual conditions in place. So Julie, I'll hand back over to you now. Thanks.
Thank you so much. It's very interesting for me actually to see that. So maybe the people who are listening in today who already have terms and conditions, after a session like today's one, I'd probably recommend that you look at those terms and conditions, and maybe there are some clauses that we'll bring up today that you may wish to add or amend based on the information that we will share with you. Those who don't have any contractual conditions at all, there should be lots of learnings for you today. And we'll be giving you really clear steps to how to think about creating your terms and conditions and those clauses. And for those of you who don't request the contractual conditions to be signed off in advance, again, I think there's going to be lots of learnings for you today. So I suppose as you're listening in today, be aware of where you're at. Maybe you already have a set of conditions, so use the content we're going to supply you with today to reassess those conditions and see if any amendments are required. And for those of you who have no conditions at all, or maybe a limited number, you're going to find lots of food for thought with today's session. Okay, so after that first topic, let's move on to topic 2 now, which involves managing customers and cancellations through COVID-19. Okay, so we're going to reverse a little bit in our memory here, and I'm going to ask you to think about our behaviours and how our contractual clauses came into play during this period, and of course how we can learn from this so we can engage better with our customers going forward. Okay, so in the scenario where who knew this, this incredible, surprising moment was going to happen in time. So the COVID-19 pandemic, the news, if you remember at the time, kind of came out sharp and heavy, and everybody was scrambling, everybody. And very quickly, we moved from kind of confusion almost to a sense of grieving. So we are human beings, and when we construct clauses, of course, we're looking to give a clear instruction to our customers, but we're always aware that we are constructing contracts and all of our material to engage with human beings, okay? So let's just reverse back now to the beginning of the pandemic and how we might think about how we did behave, or how we might behave in a certain scenario like that in the future. The first thing I would do is go and, I'm aware something is happening here. People are not going to be able to travel and fulfill their bookings. My job is to take out my contract, to read the clauses objectively, to see what it lays out in terms of the terms and conditions that we have agreed with our customers. So I like to take a contract in Word version, okay? I'll open it up in my desktop and I will go through it and I will highlight the important words, and I will be crystal clear in my mind the state of play for my business and the customer based on the clause. So I'm clear on where I stand and where the customer stands. For those of you who do not have contracts, we're a bit at sea in a moment like this because there's no clear guideline as to what we should do with the customer. So in that case, it's just a conversation and we're hoping to reach a compromise. So this is another reason why we'd highly recommend that you do have your terms and conditions clear and that a customer has consciously opted into those so that they're aware of what they are. Step 2, I've reviewed my contract. I am clear on where I stand. So I've read the contract and maybe the clause makes it crystal clear. The customer is due, for example, a full refund or a partial refund, or the customer will get the opportunity to defer, in which case I've got a clear instruction now and I can begin to have a conversation with my customer on this basis. Let's just say the clause is unclear. Then I need to figure out what tactic I'm going to use. How am I going to communicate with this customer? And either way, I would just say this, no matter what the clause has said to me, I might just say it's a rigid clause. The customer is not allowed any refund. The customer maybe potentially is allowed to defer. I may, considering that COVID-19 is such a sensitive time, and in a gesture of goodwill and kindness to my customer at a time of this difficulty, I may decide to come up with some kind of a compromise or aim to meet the customer halfway. So all of this is within your gift if the clause is being clear, and it's up really to the individual business owner to decide what they're going to do in that particular scenario. So step 3, once I've clarified my position, I then need to go about engaging with the customer. And if it were me, I'd nearly be practicing in my head what I'm going to say. You are the business, you are in control, you are the brand. What you put out there represents this. So let's think about that now. So when we're managing customers in a once-in-a-lifetime scenario, like we had with, like we have had, especially in the initial stages of COVID-19, and as we're living through, tone is everything. Our communications are so important. So we express empathy, okay? We're not cold, we're not aggressive, we're not frosty, we're kind. This is really important. And it's important anyway in tourism businesses because our job is to manage customers, and being empathetic and kind is what we do. We have to be clear, you know, so we've got the clause, we're clear on what it says. We'll make the customer aware of this, particularly if the clause is clear. In the particular case of an unusual event like COVID-19, we may wish to decide to show some flexibility, and we are always going to be professional. So in all of my work with Fáilte Ireland, I would always emphasize that tone with people like you that I have the great privilege to get to engage with through Fáilte Ireland, that the tone we try and achieve is professional, kind, friendly. So human, but professional, okay? The tone is truly everything. It acts like a cradle. It supports the customer and it supports the business strategy. So what is the strategy? Well, the strategy through COVID-19, and we were all living through this, as we said earlier, through the beginning of COVID-19, as a business, our primary focus would have been to minimize refunds, you know, to maintain as much of the cash that had been won to the date within our own bank accounts, and also maybe to encourage deferrals. So we retain that revenue and encourage deferrals for future, you know, so that the revenue is kept in our books and the customer can maybe travel at another time. So I'm going to keep in mind the customer. What do I need to do for the customer? What do I need to do to protect my business in terms of the business strategy? So let's think about how we might construct that tone now in terms of communications. So I might acknowledge the customer's reluctance or inability to travel now. And, you know, especially in businesses that are self-catering with, you know, bringing us into the heart of local communities, you have a great gift, you know, to really convey this tone. So, you know, Mary or John, I am so sorry. Look at the unusual scenario that we find ourselves in, you know, and you express this. You know, do your best to reschedule their stay to a future date or time once you've expressed this empathy, once you've shown support. So look, it would be really lovely if we could welcome you back in the future. So, you know, maybe we could put your booking in for May, and sure, if the scenario changes, we can address it again closer to that date. And when I am looking for something from a customer, I find it can be really useful, both from the business strategy and with the customer in mind, to introduce a sweetener. So I might say something like, and you'll have great ideas yourself, think about them wherever you are. Look, to be honest, we were just so broken-hearted, so upset about all that's going on. And, you know, it's so difficult for people that I got together with some local food artisans in the area, and we've agreed, you know, that for your future booking, we'll make sure that there's a lovely welcome basket there. Just as a small token for us, you know, to let you know that we're thinking of you. So just think about that, how you're minding the customer. Of course, this is sincere because we care about the customer, but also we need to think about the business strategy so that we can thrive and survive for the future. We know how we behave, our approach can impact bookings for the future. And unfortunately, when something happens that really shocks us, our response can be a knee-jerk reaction and the tone can be out of kilter. But we're going to make sure always to draw a breath, to plan through our tones so that our communications are well managed with the customer. Because if we manage our communications really well, that positive word of mouth will travel via the customer offline and online, and that is gold dust. And I think we can all think about businesses that manage their communications really well through COVID-19, and they were really shining lights to the rest of us, and that goodwill will never ever leave them. Okay, so let's just say in the contractual clause, the customer was given the right to cancel, and ultimately they decide to do this. Well, it's our job to say, look, Mary, I would have loved to have welcomed you again in the future, but look, I take it that you do want to cancel now. I look after that for you, and you manage that professionally. So do bear that we cannot force, particularly if the clause enables the customer to cancel, we cannot force the customer to accept otherwise. But it is amazing what you can achieve through through tone, through communications with the customer. And I'm aware of a business at the beginning of COVID-19 who really planned out their tone and, you know, tracked the amount of customers who rebooked, and ended up with a result that just a little above 71%, I think, of the customers did actually defer. So your tone is literally everything. Okay. So on that note now, and we're stepping towards the clauses that we're going to consider. I'm going to call my colleague Amanda Horan in again for poll number 2.
Thanks, Julie. So poll number 2, everybody, is just asking you, when did you last read and review any OTA contracts you have in place with those third-party sellers you work with? In the last 6 months, over a year ago, or never? And here we'd ask you to be as honest as you can, and don't be, you know, squirming if you say, put up your hand and say never. We know of big organizations, Julie and I have engaged with, who actually would admit they haven't looked at these ever either. So just an honest answer there is really going to be invaluable to give everybody a sense of where we're at. Just, Julie, while we get the results of that audience poll question, another question in here from the audience today: how should you manage that fine balance between being customer-centric and supportive in your tone when dealing with the booking queries, and that clear, unambiguous, direct tone required of contractual clauses? How do you just manage that balance?
Yeah, isn't that, and actually, that's a balance that I am really interested in all the time achieving when I'm engaging with my customers in the diverse ways we can as tourism businesses. So my job is, first of all, I'm engaging with a human being to be kind verbally and in writing. I'll be showing you some examples of that in a while. I express that. It's also my job, though, to give clear instruction, and clauses give clear instruction. So in my world, my tactic for that is kindness first, instruction second. So I make sure that the kindness filters first, but the instruction follows on so that the customer is perfectly aware. And if you like, actually, when the instruction follows the kindness, the customer is more likely to embrace that too.
Absolutely. So Colette, we might take the results of that poll too, please. Okay, so that's a solid answer, fairly balanced across all 3 scenarios for businesses. But great to see that some people are actually taking, you know, the courage to have a look at those third-party contracts with third-party sellers, because, Julie, it's fair to say they're not always the easiest documents to read, are they?
I'm actually really impressed with those numbers. So almost a third each way. So, you know, Amanda, I work a lot on contracting. I've read a lot of reseller contracts, and I can tell you it's not the norm, even for, you know, the shining lights in our industry, really advanced businesses, to read contractual clauses. I would also say that, especially depending on the number of resellers, online travel agents that you work with, every contract is different. So being skilled enough to be able to read them is a gift in itself. So well done. Yeah, well done. And actually, on that note, I would advise people listening in today that sometimes if you feel that that's not your skill, find somebody in the local community who has that as skill. You know, you provide your skill to them and they can provide that skill to you, you know. So
there are probably good other businesses in the community that work more in that area, I suppose, that could help you out. Absolutely.
Yeah, or to be honest, I see when we do the training, the contracting training with Fáilte Ireland, there are some people who just don't like reading a contract. They just
Yeah,
don't like. It requires immense patience.
yeah,
It really requires you to clearly
very
read
important.
the wording. That's just not everyone's skill set. But thankfully there are
And
people in the world who do
I'm
enjoy doing
sure,
that.
Julie, as well, your accountant might be a good place to start to give you a steer on that as well, because the accountancy firms would be more familiar with this jargon as well, maybe. Would that be fair to say?
I would say anyone who has, I mean, the beautiful thing about working with tourism business is a lot of people are doers. We just love looking after the customer. We like being out there, making sure the customer is okay and that they're looked after. So that's a lovely thing. And, I happen to book a lot of self-catering for my own family. The gorgeous calls that I get from people who own self-catering businesses, just gorgeous. Just sometimes that kind of person, the doer, the person who wants to care for the customer,
Is
might just not be interested in that
the
precise
detail?
analytical kind of side, but you're
Yeah,
right, and it's someone like an accountant that would be a natural part of their daily world,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Really
okay.
great question and
And
feedback there.
and
So
and Julia, I suppose it's fair to say, I suppose maybe some of the reason that we don't tend to look at those is because we know as individual businesses, there's nothing you can do to influence those contract terms and conditions with a third party. I mean, they are what they are. So really what you're reading to review them to decide is this a business partner that I can work with under those terms and conditions, or is it not? Is that fair to say?
with some exceptions, in most cases, that's the scenario. So bear in
Right.
mind what we said earlier. For the customer direct, I create my own contract. For an indirect sales channel, like an online travel agent, or as we said there earlier, tour operator, I'm entering into a partnership with somebody else, so the dynamic changes. So yes, in the case of an online travel agent, they are contracting globally across many countries. I may be expected just to agree to their clauses, but I would ask, and that's a really good point you brought up there, Amanda. I would ask for the people listening in today to bear in mind that the control is always yours. You
Yes.
own the inventory. You are responsible for the distribution of the inventory. You decide who you want to engage with. And I often would recommend, say for businesses that are not so used to working with indirect sales channels, that they begin with one first, get to know how that partnership works, and then move on to others, So really
Yeah,
great
that's a
questions
great,
coming in there.
great suggestion if you're new to it actually as well. Don't necessarily open yourself up to working with everybody and anybody. You need to gauge it, yeah, a steady pace in that regard.
Steady
Julie,
pace, yeah. It
I'll
takes
let
us
you move
all,
on.
yeah, we shall, yeah. It takes us all a while to learn, to learn things, I suppose, as we move along. Okay, on to topic 3 now. The management, so this was lined up brilliantly actually, of online travel agent contracts and clauses. In my world, actually, nothing makes me happier than, a grey day outside and I get to close my office and I get to review an online travel agent contractual clause. And I know there'll be somebody, sitting at home in their living room or office today rolling their eyes when they hear another human being say that. But I actually almost find it therapeutic to read through the clauses and see what they're saying to me. Okay, so we're going to think about reseller contracts now, and bearing in mind that our relationship with a partner like an OTA is just that. It is a partnership. When I engage in this partnership, I need to engage in the full knowledge of what it brings me. So of course, through this kind of partnership, I can reach customers that I cannot easily reach myself. For whatever reason, they may not just know I exist, they may be from an entirely different country, and the online travel agent gives a nice orderly catalogue of what's available in my area, and customers from all over, the island of Ireland and abroad can book me in this way. As we said there a moment ago, all the decisions are yours. I decide to engage as the business owner with the partnership or not. It is my responsibility to choose which partners, it may be one or multiple, and often that depends on how much inventory I have to sell that I would like to engage in. My job is to be informed. My job is to keep updated. So it's really important. Okay. So as you said there earlier, earlier, Amanda, the online travel agent contracts, well, they tend to be presented to us, and our job is to be aware of the contractual conditions. And I suppose we decide to agree with them or not, and that will determine whether we engage in this partnership or not. So just to bear in mind that the online travel agent contract tends to be a rolling contract. So I can remember the first, when Expedia came out very quickly, contracting through the island of Ireland after 9/11, and the first, people were looking at online travel agent contracts then. And I'm super impressed by the poll feedback there earlier, because I can tell you now that I work with large organizations who have not read their contract all the way back since then, so almost 20 years ago. And bear this in mind as I'm talking to you, the OTA contract rolls, so it is your job to regularly assess it. So what do I do there?
Sorry,
oh, yeah?
Julie, just a quick question there to ask you, and it's just come in on the back of that. Do you think it's possible that some of the OTA contracts people have reviewed now in the last 6 months might have been because of the COVID difficulties, having to leave the control of the booking with the OTA and then leaving you really no opportunity to be empathetic with the customer or use that supportive tone we were talking about earlier?
Yeah, actually, that would be an interesting thing to know. Yeah, I would feel that more people have become aware of their contractual conditions now. I would really be interested to hear from those people what it was like to read through those contracts. Because, for example, I'm looking at some contracts that businesses have drawn down, that is literally not even up to date. So it's just really, you are probably right that more people are drawing down the contracts to be aware of where they stand in this partnership. I would say that's correct in light of COVID-19. And we are hearing
so I suppose part of your selection process in terms of choosing the partners that are right for you is maybe choosing partners that actually, in the case of a crisis like COVID or a force majeure, that the policy of that third party sits okay with you as a business.
Yeah, so bearing in mind, of course, all the time we're talking about partnership here. In any other world, you wouldn't enter a partnership without scrutinizing it, So it's the same when we enter into a partnership with an OTA. Are they compatible with us? Do they align? Or what can they do for me? What customers can they bring to me? What are their clauses? Do I know them? Am I happy with all of them or not? All of this needs to be factored in before we engage in any partnership, and particularly with online travel agent partnerships, really important. So you're right, Amanda, I've seen a lot more people read their contracts in recent months.
But Julie, that brings up a good point as well in terms of, fine, you can't necessarily influence the contract terms and conditions with a third party, but there's some really important questions that you need to ask of that seller and distributor in terms of who their audience are, customer types, all of that, to make sure it's a right fit for you as well, isn't it, culturally,
Oh my goodness, that's such an important tip. So when you look at the contractual conditions, if there is any clause that you do not understand or that you need further clarification upon, you need to go back and ask about this. Remember, you don't sign until you fully understand everything. That's an excellent point. And depending on the contract, the clauses can be quite complex, actually. So I would say, first of all, draw down the contract, ask maybe colleagues or friends in your local destination for their insight. And if you haven't reached a clear understanding, then reach out through the communications area with the online travel agent and ask that query. And actually, Amanda, that's a really good point, because I would say over the years, not many people have questioned clauses for clarity. And it would be interesting, I think, for the OTA to hear that kind of feedback back as well, to see it from the supplier's perspective. Really important.
Okay.
Thank you. So what do I do there in terms of an online travel agent contract? I tend to download a copy in Word format within your online travel agent platform. So you'll be aware when I'm saying a dashboard, what I mean there. The contractual conditions tend to be there. Now, I am aware of some online travel agents, and it can be quite hard to find where the terms and conditions are located. So just be patient. You'll find them, okay? Look for them in the dashboard. They should be there, but your job is to find them, okay? I tend to do it in Word. I go through it carefully. There are some that I'll be able to understand straight away. I might color those in green. Some that I don't understand so clearly, I might color those in blue and orange or whatever, color code it. So I'm aware of the ones that need further thought from me. Okay, I might read a clause, fully understand what it means, and then go, I'm actually not happy with this clause. This doesn't work for me at all. But actually, as part of this partnership, I'm requested to sign up to the clause. So now I have an objective decision to make. I'm aware the online travel agent can bring me customers I cannot reach myself. I don't particularly like this clause, but there doesn't seem to be a lot I can do about it in this partnership arrangement. So I sign up. Maybe I make the decision. This is your decision to make, to sign up for the contract, including that clause, in the full knowledge that I have understood it. And therefore, if something unprecedented like the COVID-19 pandemic happens, I'm not in the dark. I know exactly what I've signed up to. So this is really important. So I'm aware of where I'm compromising within a partner contract. That's really important. And I'm aware of the reward. So for example, in the case of the OTA, they are very successful in bringing customers to businesses that a business might not easily reach themselves. Okay, I would suggest, and it's so fantastic to hear businesses there who have reviewed their OTA contracts recently. So every time I say OTA, remember I'm meaning online travel agent. I would suggest you've started a habit now, keep that up. For those of you who have not started this habit yet, begin it if you're working with these partners. I would do a thorough read of that contract at least annually. I would do another check quarterly. That's me. You make your decision, but whatever you decide, make sure you're doing thorough annual checks. And I would keep up to date on any new amendments that are applied to that contract mid-year. So I know a lot of you will be aware that Airbnb have been updating their terms and conditions. They've been sending communications to both customers and suppliers in that regard recently. When you see an email like this, and of course our inbox can always be very busy, do not press delete because it can have huge consequences for your business at a later stage. Take the time to read the clause. And what I do find with clauses, I remember finding them incredibly difficult contracts to read when I started myself. I've just gotten used to them over the years, and I've managed to contract in lots of different ways. So be patient with yourself at the beginning. You'll find that you'll get into the swing of it with learning, and you'll be able to read the clauses more intuitively, I suppose, fluidly, as you move through the process and your learning grows. So regularly check your dashboard for updates. In the case of some OTAs, you may have an account manager. If you do have an account manager, keep regular contact with your account manager. Reach out. I don't really understand this bit. Can you explain this to me? And make sure you get an answer on that front if you do have an account manager available to you. So as we said there a while ago, and of course there are so many resellers on the online travel agent front, but I just picked out Airbnb here because they've been quite vocal about their changed conditions recently. And look at what they're doing, guys. They're not trying to hide anything. They're trying to make the supplier and the customer aware of their changes, because it's kind of no hiding in contractual conditions. Our job is to give clear instruction. We're not trying to unconsciously make a customer do something that they do not want to do. So look at this. I just copied it from a screenshot from Airbnb, and it clearly states, for stays under 28 nights, hosts can choose which cancellation options to offer guests. For example, flexible, moderate, strict. For long stays, so 28 nights or more, an automatic cancellation policy applies. So you would need to be aware of this. And if you're willing to sign up for long stays, you would need to be aware of these different cancellation policies and the scenario they would place you in if the customer does need to cancel. So be aware of that. Okay, so we're going to move on now to the next topic, more looking at the management of customer booking. So how would we address clauses with our customers? Okay, so what's our job with our customers? We are in control. I manage the relationship with the customer. My job is to bring an opportunity to conversion. So what do I mean by that? A customer picks up the phone, or makes an inquiry via email, and my job is to make sure that that becomes a confirmed booking, particularly if I have availability. Remember the kindness in our tone, the empathy earlier. We're going to think about that as well. My job is also to give clear instruction to ensure that the customer knows about the booking conditions, that apply to the booking that they're making. My job is to make it easy for the customer to book. We have all been in the scenario where you've had to make 5 phone calls or send 5 emails to get something sorted. And to be honest, the world has become too busy and we expect more. So the faster, the more swiftly, the more professionally we can facilitate customers, the more likely we can get their confirmation and move on to the next booking. So this is really important. As a business, I would also, especially in self-catering, look at the places where you're bringing people. We would like to encourage customers to think about staying longer, you know, spreading positive word of mouth about the area, about the experience of staying with you in your, you know, home or cottage or house or apartment, but also spreading positive word, you know, throughout their family and friends on the island of Ireland and around the world, offline and online. We'd like the customers to return. Our job is to mind the customer so that we get this positive word of mouth. And we all know it is most difficult to win the customer the first time. It also can be the most expensive part, just time consuming resources. If we invest in anything to do with marketing, the first time we go to win the customer is the most difficult time. Once we've won them and they've had a lovely time, it's much easier then to create, you know, lots of happy memories with that customer. And then one customer ends up bringing us lots of customers to the lovely things that they say about us. So bear that in mind. So here, you know, maybe this is Jane, she's rung in or she sent me an email and I am now, so even if I say something verbally, okay, there's a big rule with me, a customer rings and asks for, you know, something, I would always make sure to follow up in writing. We all forget verbal conversations. So we speak verbally, we might agree a rate. I would quickly, immediately follow up on an email so that is in a concrete form that we can all rely upon later. So let's just say, and of course there are lots of different scenarios when it comes to self-catering. This is just an example I've put here. Dear Jane, thank you so much for your inquiry for Friday, 14th of May for 7 nights. We would be delighted, remember the tone, to look after you. Please note that the rates and details for your request are as follows. The rate is whatever it is per night, which equates to whatever it does for the 7 night stay, inclusive of VAT. I'm being kind, but I'm giving clear instruction. Please be aware that this rate includes, this is really important to me, it's important to me across all tourism businesses in Ireland because we tend to offer a lot in Ireland without emphasizing the value. And I happen to stay in self-catering a lot with my own family, and sometimes I arrive and there's stuff there that I didn't know was going to be there, you know, maybe, you know, milk in the fridge or a welcome basket or this kind of thing. So it is really good to emphasize the value at the outset so the customer knows for the price that they're paying what they're getting. So you could just simply detail those inclusions in the body of your email. I would also suggest that if you have a lot of inclusions, think about creating a separate document that says, you know, to the customer, price inclusions, and you can simply say on an email like this, you know, we actually, there's, you know, we include a lot of items in our rate, and to take a look at the enclosed document, include, you know, entitled inclusions, and you will see all of the things that we include. And potentially other destinations do this. It could even include, you know, discounts to local beautiful craft shops and this kind of thing to encourage the revenue to flow through your area. So you're doing a kindness to your community, and you're also facilitating your customer, and you're also, you know, giving yourself a better opportunity to get a conversion. People love that kind of thing. It's very thoughtful. So again, let's go on my email. We love welcoming guests to our area. Name the area. We always place our tourism businesses and products within the context of their destinations. And for your benefit, we've created a list of things to do and experiences that we enjoy as locals living here, and attach a document of the stuff that you like to do. It'll be great information for the customer. Again, it comes across as a great kindness, and you're literally giving the customer a reason to come and stay with you. So maybe the stuff that you personally like to do. This is what me and my husband, or me and my family, my children, or me and my sister love to do in this area. Detail it. I'd love to see that. Okay, again, we're also supporting our local destinations and businesses. So on again with this email. We'd like to make you aware that, so now this is important, every business needs to give the instruction on how the booking is going to be managed, and I'll show you, I've created other scenarios for you in another format. We'll look at that in a while, but let's just say this business has decided this format. So remember, you are in control, you decide. Your job is to give clear instruction. We'd like, let's just say this is peak summer, you're out the doors, okay? We'd like to make you aware that due to the volume of booking requests we receive, we will not be able to confirm, hold, or guarantee your requested accommodation without payment as follows. Option 1, we'd need to receive, for example, 30% deposit of the total price, which equates to whatever it is, and the balance payable no later than, and you give the date for that. Or scenario 2, we would really need to receive full payment or prepayment of the total price, particularly if it's close to the arrival date. If you would like to confirm this booking, we ask that you carefully read the enclosed booking form. No hiding with terms and conditions. The customer needs to know what they're signing up for, which highlights important information, including booking and cancellation policies. To proceed with a full confirmation of your booking, we would need to receive the payment as outlined above and a signed copy of the booking form. On a final note, Tone, can I wish you the very best? I do hope that we'll have the opportunity to welcome you too, and you can name wherever your business is or the name of your business. And if you need any further assistance, please do not hesitate to contact me. Balance of tone, kindness and instruction. So you can see that email, which I've enlarged there, actually just fits into an email format. So what it's not too long. I've highlighted a point that I feel the customer may need to see, an important point for the customer. So I don't want them saying to me they haven't seen it. I'll bold it, so that they do see it. So I put my key content into the email body and I attach any additional content, maybe inclusions, my terms and conditions, my booking form, maybe my things to do in the area, so the customer can, print that off or look at that independently on their desktop. So when I'm presenting my terms and conditions offline, as I said there, we include the key information in the email body. We can attach additional content, or in the email body, I could also do a web link. So let's just say I've already got my terms and conditions really clearly displayed on my website. I could say, Jean, please take a look at this link where all of our terms and conditions are outlined. Please take a look at this link where we have highlighted stuff that we love to do in the area. Please take a look at this link where I've highlighted the many things that are included in your rate, okay? Online. So it's very important when we are a business, we go to sale, we go to market through direct sales channels and indirect sales channels, offline and online. So it's of great interest to me. Our communications sometimes can be clear, maybe online and not so clear offline, but our communications are consistent whether we are behaving offline or online, particularly in relation to contractual clauses. Our job is to give clarity. Okay, so when we are presenting our terms and conditions, we want to make them easy to understand. We want to create clarity. So don't present the customer with a Bible of information. Remember all the jobs that these people could be doing that have nothing to do with hospitality or tourism. Make it easy for them to read the conditions. So lay them out maybe in bullet points, nice paragraphs, numbering, so that they can easily read through the content, okay? So just to bring up an example of that, Ireland.hotels.com, you might have heard there, for Green Friday launched the Go Anywhere voucher. And if you look at their website, you'll see you click into the terms and conditions. And here we go inside. So this is a voucher that had a heavy promotion in the lead up to Christmas. And take a look at how nicely the bullet points are in relation to this offer. Now for self-catering, maybe we have more contractual conditions to communicate. So we need to think about how we can present them in a way that is not off-putting for the customer and prevents this level of clarity. It's probably no harm making the point that when I read through those conditions myself, there were one or two I was like, really, I'm not sure I'm totally happy about that one, but I went ahead and bought a voucher anyway. And I sign up then knowing that that is the condition I'm signing up to. There are plenty of clauses there that I'm totally happy with. So the customer makes the judgment. They've enabled me to make that judgment through terms, clear terms and conditions. So when we present our information online, so I was taking a lot of look through how self-catering individual businesses and larger businesses are presenting their conditions online. So I can see that there's often the customer is like brought in and then they put in their booking details and maybe the terms and conditions and the booking and the cancellation policy are there just before I press yes. Okay, so you can think about doing it that way. I might also consider, so this is something for you to think about, making those conditions more overt so that the customer in their research process also see the terms and conditions and the nice stuff like your inclusions as well, by, for example, creating my tabs on the home page of the website following a format like this. So in the first example, I've created a tab with rates and terms, and on my second one, I separated it out, rates and terms separately. So you might just want to think about whether it would be good for you and for your customer to express it in this way too. Okay, guys, I hope you're all doing okay out there in Planet Virtual. We're doing really nicely with the time. We've got another half an hour to go, so I appreciate, I hope you've got a cup of coffee in your hand and that the concentration levels are in order, because this is a really important topic for today. And this is about setting terms and conditions and cancellation policies. Okay. So what have we said in the lead up to this? Our job as businesses is to provide clear instruction for the customer, to provide clear direction and guidance. It is my job to manage and mind the customer. It is also my job to manage and protect my business. This is the balance that we're trying to achieve. So I'm going to bring you to the document here on the right in a moment. We want to, as we keep saying today, give our customers clear instruction. In terms of protecting my business, when I create cancellation policies, one question I always ask myself is, if the customer were to cancel by a particular time, would I have the opportunity to resell that space as well? Again, that's a really important question to ask, and that might determine the dates by which the customers can cancel, and also the kind of refund they might get based on the cancellation period. But I do want to draw your attention to the document that's come up on your screens on the right there, and I'm going to call on my colleague Colette to show us this document now, because you'll be getting a copy of this document after today's session. Okay, so as you can see here, so I'm just going to bring your attention to it because there are a lot of clauses considered here and we won't have time to go into them in depth today. But this document you will receive along with your slides after today's session, and you will see it really maps out a way for thinking of diverse clauses. Note that the document begins by advising that as contracts can have a significant impact on your business, it is recommended that you validate the terms you create internally in your organization or externally by someone like a business legal advisor. So I'm just going to ask Colette now to move through the document, and I'll highlight a couple of points for you. So the deposit and final payment, I'll go into that in more detail with you in a moment through the slides. And this page, full prepayment, we'll look at that closely ourselves. And we'll move on to the next page, VAT. We'll look at that one closely. So you will see, for example, of course, we want our customers to take great care of our properties. So it's very important to give an instruction around a security deposit and what will happen if the customer damages something within our property. So you will see that there is an instruction, a suggested clause in this document that might help you in this regard. I will just make the point that some of you may, when you read the clause, you might say, oh gosh, that clause suits me exactly. And all you may need to do is copy and paste the clause into your terms and conditions. Some of the clauses may not suit you exactly. They may need to have an adjustment, or you may need to entirely rework them, but you can use the clause as an inspiration, maybe as a learning ground to do that. We want to make the customer really aware of our rate inclusions. We might include this. What is the scenario regarding housekeeping? Is it included or not? Or can I pay extra for it? Of course, this is really important. Arrival, departure dates, occupants and management of bookings. Now, I was having a good look around at a lot of your businesses online, and I could see that a lot of you are very clear on calling out that instruction that you cannot exceed the number of people that are recommended to stay in the particular self-catering property. So again, we've given a way to manage that here. Maybe you've got a no smoking policy. I happen to work with a lot of self-catering businesses, and in a lot of these we put in a contractual clause about protecting the environment. So what customers need to do about, say, recycling, leave no trace policy. So you'll see an example of that contractual clause here. In some businesses that I work with, they like to advise the customer to arrange personal insurance. So again, this is something that I'll allow that you can read in your own time. Complaints, very important one. And I saw some of you had this clause in and some not. I think it's a good one to bring to the attention of a customer. So if they have a complaint when they're on site with you, that you would encourage them to let you know about that complaint so that you can address it while they're on site rather than when they leave you. And that's a nicely constructed clause that encourages the customer to do that. So I suppose you can make sure that they end up having a lovely stay and not, you know, and that the outcome of positive word of mouth is achieved afterwards. Cancellation policies we'll go through in a couple of minutes on the slides. Force majeure, of course, which was really topical this year in light of COVID-19. We'll go through in the slides. And finally, I just want to draw your attention to the end of this document, and I'll show it to you again very briefly in the slides at the moment. You have a booking form template that you can provide your customers with here. You'll see it steps out the steps that you should use for encouraging, for laying out the steps for your customers to make a booking. And again, this document is designed so that you can copy and paste and change the content you wish to change into a document of your own. So as I said, we won't get in time to go into all that document in great detail today, but I do want to make you aware that it's a useful document that can be used, has been created by Fáilte Ireland to support you in thinking about your contractual clauses after today support, or to maybe revisit existing clauses for those of you who already have robust contracts. Okay, so let's take a look now at a couple of those clauses. So deposits and payments, what might that look like? A booking for whatever we name the accommodation is only confirmed when the deposit of, say, 1/3 of the holiday rental to the nearest euro clear instruction is received together with a completed and signed booking form. All payments must be made in euro currency. Until the deposit and the signed booking form are received, your booking is provisional. Provisional bookings are held for, and you can give this instruction a maximum of, for example, 3, 7, 14, 21 days from the date of inquiry, and will be released without notice. Or will be released if you ask us to put a call in to check beforehand. Depending on how busy you are, some businesses really do like to say release without notice because it puts the onus on the customer rather than an extra strain on the business. Due to a high volume of booking inquiries, your requested accommodation will not be confirmed, held or guaranteed without receipt of the deposit payment and signed booking form. So an example of how we might address the deposit and payment clause. Final payment clause. The full outstanding balance is payable no later than, for example, 4, 6, 10 weeks before the arrival date, maybe along with the security deposit of whatever that is. Reminders will not be sent unless requested, or simply due to the volume of work we have to engage with, reminders will not be sent, putting the onus on the customer. These are decisions the business needs to make. If the full balance is not paid on time, we reserve the right to cancel your booking, in which case the deposit will be forfeited. That's quite a strenuous clause. Personally, even if I decided to include that clause, and I may very well include it, I think I would put a call into the customer before I would exercise it. So this is where we're going to show a little bit of flexibility, but in writing I am covered here if this is the clause I'm interested in, and that's the important thing. Bookings received within whatever 4, 6, 8, 10 weeks before the arrival date must be paid in full. Full prepayment, another clause. A booking for the accommodation is only confirmed when full prepayment is received. And I'll leave you to read that one in more detail yourself. Due to the volume of bookings, your requested accommodation will not be held, or it will be held for 3 days until we get that payment in. So full prepayment. Depending on certain times of the year, you may wish to exercise that clause. VAT, really important. Please know that rates quoted include government tax, VAT, at the current rate of whatever you know the current rate to be, and there's been fluctuations in that VAT rate, higher or lower. The named business reserves the right to amend these rates in the event of changes to the rate of tax or the introduction of any new government levy. So in particular, in the case where the government raises that VAT, a business can get caught. So you may wish to consider including a clause like this. Cancellation policy and normal trading. If you have to cancel for whatever reason, we will do our best to relet the cancelled booking and refund your rental in full, less, for example, an administration charge, or less the administration charge plus less any losses incurred if the accommodation is relet to another party at a short notice or a lower price. In other words, if you, because of a late cancellation, have to sell on that accommodation at a lower price, well, the customer will receive a refund less what you've lost there. Cancellations must be received as soon as possible in writing. Cancellations and normal trading. If we do not succeed in reletting, then what happens? So remember I said to you earlier, do I have enough time to resell or not? And for me, the cancellation policy is instructed on that basis. So I might say to the customer 40, 60, 90 days, for example, in advance of arrival, a full refund of the rental fee is allowed. Within a shorter period, 1/3, 30%. Within a shorter period, again, 60% apply. So I'm going to retain that. In less than 21 days, 100%. Please note that cancellation fees and terms apply to fully cancelled bookings and partially cancelled bookings. For example, reducing a 14-night stay to a 7-night stay, because of course this is still a cancellation from the business perspective. So very clear instruction. I'm going to ask you to go through your cancellation policies after the session today and to maybe read through the wording here and to adjust your dates in terms of your cancellation policy to enable yourself to have that leverage to resell, to rethink about your cancellation policies clearly. In terms of COVID-19, we may have had just a particular policy for COVID-19. So something like this: should the business, should you have to cancel, the business provider, the supplier, due to unforeseen circumstances or a COVID-19 related matter, you will be informed immediately. In this case, what happens? You will have the option of transferring the booking to a suitable date, no later than whatever, December 2021, so next year, and potentially for consideration that little gift card or the artisan gift basket will be included with our compliments. Or option 2, you will have your full the full fee that you paid for your booking refunded. So you see, we're really trying to work through this. And it was interesting to see through COVID-19 that a lot of businesses became more flexible in their cancellation policy, because we've just found ourselves in such a fluid situation. And lots of businesses have gained a lot of goodwill because of that. They've literally worked with their customers in that regard. It is also interesting to note that Airbnb had had exercised the force majeure clause, their force majeure clause, when we weren't aware that the COVID-19 pandemic was going to happen. Now that we are making bookings in the knowledge that COVID-19 pandemic is here, they've adjusted those clauses, which is interesting because we're fully aware that we're living in this scenario. So I found those clauses very interesting, and I would urge you, if you do work with Airbnb, to take a close look at those. So again, I would say, let's just say and I understand that I am one self-catering owner, I have one house, maybe one apartment, and the money is coming in. I would urge you to realize if that money belongs to you or not. If it doesn't belong to you, if it's at risk of being refunded, put it into a bank account. It's not yours until the contractual conditions say it is. So don't be tempted to use it before. It's a bit like, VAT. If VAT comes into you, you do not own this money. You do not spend it. It has to be paid back to the government. Put it away in a separate account so that you're not at risk of spending it when it is not yours, and it's just not yours to spend yet. Okay, so the force majeure clause. Let's think about how we might construct this. If for any reason your booking needs to be curtailed, altered, or cancelled due to circumstances beyond the customer, and our control, the supplier, that prevent, hinder, or delay, very important those words, prevent, hinder, or delay, the ability for your booking to be realised, for example, and we give all the scenarios: fire, flood, exceptional weather or environmental conditions, pandemics, epidemics, riots, water and electricity supplies, earthquakes, war, destruction. You've given a load of them there. We've given a lot of them there. Very important at this point, or any other force majeure that is beyond the control of the customer and the supplier, because there's going to be a force majeure in the future that we have not thought about. None of us thought about this pandemic, so that will cover you for that. You will be offered, and what will you be offered? Option 1 may be the opportunity to defer your booking to an available date at no extra cost, or at an equivalent cost up to 24 months after your original booking date. A full refund less an administration fee, or a partial refund, say 30–50%. The remaining balance withheld can be set against a future booking made by you within, for example, 24 months of your original booking date. Clear instruction. If you've got this kind of a clause in place and a force majeure happens, you will be clearly able to give guidance to your customer on the clause that you've both signed up to. So we're coming up to the last part of today's session, and I'm going to call back on my colleague Amanda there.
Well, I tell you, Julie, there's an awful lot in that to digest. Just as well, we're going to be giving a copy of the PowerPoint after this, but really, really good stuff and really clear guidance that you've offered there, and I'm sure people will find it useful. Picking up on the poll question then, for this stage, we want to kind of gauge with people, does everybody have a force majeure clause in their contract? Yes, we do have a clause in a contract. No, we don't. And maybe for you, it's not applicable. We don't have a contract. While we're catching the results on that, Julie, just a question that's in here, and we probably touched on it slightly earlier, but for someone who has no major experience in reading and developing contractual clauses, where would you recommend they start and what advice would you give?
Yeah, so I'm going to give this advice on the basis that I was someone who didn't have a clue when I started. Okay, I remember the lady who trained me in contracting, and I was looking at her, I'll be honest, between us here, like she was a strange human being. I couldn't believe anyone was asking me. I thought only lawyers did this, solicitors. You know, really so if anyone is out there feeling this, believe me, I'm the lady who started that way, you know. So
okay. So
yeah,
don't fear it.
Do not fear it. Yeah, in fact, maybe you'll end up being a nerd like me ultimately and relish reading them now. That's not how I started. But I would say, look, Fáilte Ireland, it's a brilliant resource that's been supplied to people listening in today from the Irish Self-Catering Federation. That template that I showed you there earlier with suggested clauses for you to review, amend, change, accept based on your own business, remembering all the time that all the decisions and the responsibilities are your own. Isn't that a good thing to know? I would start there and creating, you know, informing myself through that template. Number one, what conditions would I like? Number two, for those of you particularly who haven't read an OTA contract yet, draw one down, draw it down in Word format, clear 2 hours, sit at your desk with a cup of coffee, read through it. You might surprise yourself by what you understand.
Okay, and I suppose a fair point there, when you do draft one in your first attempt, there's no harm in giving it to family and friends and get them to look at it as a customer's lens and say, does this make sense to you if you were going to, you know, somewhere and you were booking under these conditions? Just very quickly on that, Julie, before we go to the results, how often would you suggest reviewing and updating contracts?
Oh, really excellent question. So I would suggest, my own rule of thumb is I tend to review something like the contract, the sample that I showed you, definitely once a year. Having our housekeeping in order is really important. In my life, you know, when I was working within product, within, you know, rentals for self-catering apartments and even within hotels and other businesses, I would have chosen Easter to do that because in my world, that was a quieter time. That's probably exactly the opposite for some of the people listening in today. So pick that period that's quiet for you. Go through the contractual conditions and update them then so that you're ready to issue your new conditions for the new year. Yeah.
So same guidelines as in terms of servicing your boiler, do this once a year at a minimum.
Yes, that's the next task. That's the next webinar, Amanda.
Okay, so we'll take the results of the poll then, Colette. Thank you. Okay, interesting actually, 60% almost there don't have that clause currently in their contract. And I suppose our guidance there would be, Julie, if COVID has taught us one thing, it is that we need a force majeure clause. Would that be fair to say?
Oh, totally. And I have to say that clause was of great interest to me. And you mentioned earlier that we did, you know, Fáilte Ireland managed the guidance for DMCs and PCOs, so professional travel buyers in that regard. And a learning for me, so all the time we're learning, nobody ever knows everything, you're always adding to your learning. A big learning for me in that clause was to say, you know, in any other scenario, so scenarios that we haven't even thought about, because remember, a clause is objectively read. If you were to bring it to a solicitor or a judge, they would be objectively reading. Now, we never want to go there, okay? We never go near the legal bit. But just think about how they would read it. They would objectively read it to see what it honestly says to them. So the construction is important, and that's how we have to think about it as well, you know. But all of this can be normalized, you know. So bear in mind, I am the lady who was terrified starting, and I've got my head around it. So anyone here can as well, you know. Very interesting feedback there, and I would certainly urge you to think about force majeure clauses in a revision of your contract there. Okay, so we're coming up now to literally the last. We will be finishing on time today at 3:30. So very briefly, creating your booking form. And I won't go into this in too much detail because we already showed it to you there earlier. But this is the layout, which is designed for you to amend for your own needs. Of course, we have laid it out. Fáilte Ireland has laid it out in terms of steps 1, 2, 3. You know, you can remove the steps or you can keep them in if you feel that it provides provides clarity for your customer. Note step number 2, though, I would say that please insert the terms and conditions that are important to you. You can use that field to do that. When you get the template, you'll see that we've only inputted one clause there, so the deposit. It's your job to really input all of the clauses, maybe including the force, I hope including the force majeure clause that you would like to include there. So just to bring that part of that document that you will receive to your attention, and that you don't forget about it, because it is at the end of the document following the suggestions for clauses that you will receive. And of course, the document includes a part that the customer needs to sign and date as well. So we are now coming up to, I think it's our final poll of today. Amanda, I'll leave this with you.
That's right, it is indeed. So the question here is based on the trading year of 2019, in other words, our last normal year, we might say. What percentage of your business was achieved through third-party contracts, such as OTAs? Would it have been less than 20%, between 20 and 40, 40 to 60, or maybe greater than 60? And I suppose, you know, that is an interesting question, and we'll come back to it in a moment, because I think there is an audience question based on that. But just a question there, Julie, while we're taking the poll results on that, should you ever consider being flexible with customers regarding contractual clauses, and kind of what circumstances might you consider that?
Yes, and that's an excellent question. And we always need to bear in mind that we're in hospitality and tourism. So what I like to do is make sure I have a really robust clause that gives the customer really clear instruction. The instruction could be, for example, there is no refund, or there is a deferral. You have to use this booking, put, you know, very nicely within 12 or 24 months. So that could be a tough message for the customer to hear, okay? And when I'm hearing the customer on the phone, you'll find lots of customers who go, look, I signed up to that, I understand, that's fine, okay? And then you'll hear other customers that may have more difficulty with that clause. And with a customer like that, in my own head, now everyone here today will make their own decisions, I would try and meet them in the middle. I might say something, say for COVID-19, it's incredibly difficult for all of us, everybody, you, me, everybody. And I know, we allowed a deferral, for 6 months time, but look, in light of what's going on here, we'll allow it up to 12, 18 months, maybe even 24 months, whatever you decide there. So the customer likes to feel that you're giving them something, So I would say have your clause in order first, then you have the option to compromise. If you don't have your clause in order, you're a bit at sea.
Yeah.
The answer there would be...
We're just about to finish up, but just can I prompt anybody, if they are anxious to submit a question to us, not to forget to do so in the question box there to the right of your screen. So looking at the results then of that poll, we can see that based on the trading year, the percentage of business through third-party contracts such as OTAs, there is some people with considerable, so roughly kind of a third, but erring on the side of between 40 and 60% of business coming through OTAs. And I suppose that brings with it, Julie, some interesting questions. Would you ever recommend handing over all your bookings to a reseller? Or is that a little bit like putting all your eggs in the one basket, and if something goes wrong, like we're always advocating to people, you need to be in a number of markets so that if something happens in one market, you have something else to fall back on, as we found this year with COVID-19 when it's only domestic and local. But what's your feeling on that in terms of that balance of business to third-party sellers?
Yeah, so that's a really excellent question. So bear in mind, I am the business. I'm going to think of myself as the business. I own the inventory. I decide how to distribute it. Everything is within my control, okay? I have worked with businesses in recent months who've actually given 100% of their inventory to online travel agents who maybe are experienced in the international markets. And of course, there aren't, it's not easy for international visitors. They cannot come at the moment, which means that they have no business on the book. So I find that really raises an alarm bell with me, if you like. So this is how I say, if I have a small amount of inventory, say I have one house or two houses, a small number, I could, and if I did an amazing job, I could build up a lot of bookings via my direct customers if I had a strategy for that, and include customers from the domestic market, all counties, in Ireland, so never focusing on one area, even on the island, and international markets. And I could consider that I would introduce, the OTAs, an amazing function. They can reach customers at a much lower cost than it would come to us, and bring those to me. So in my, I'm a great advocate for this, Amanda, that we operate stable revenue generation. So we spread our bets, across diverse sales channels, diverse markets, diverse customer segments. I have seen the scenario where businesses with a very small amount of inventory, one room, say above a restaurant, or one house or one apartment, can have a very high proportion of direct bookings because they look after their customers so well. So that's an interesting scenario to see as well. A rule of thumb, I would really ask everyone listening in today, it's really important. A lot of people found themselves in difficult scenarios this year because they maybe put too much of their inventory in a particular market or a sales channel. Think about, if I look at what's on my books here, if I look at it objectively, if a different scenario were to happen, for example, and we saw a scenario after the last recession where the domestic market did not have a lot of money to spend, and we became more reliant on the international market. So this thing is constantly moving. But if I look at the composition of my revenue, where it comes from, would I be able to withstand a storm or not? That's what I would ask myself. Yeah.
True. Okay. And finally, Julie, just a question that's in here as well from another of our audience. Regarding signing, can the payment received be deemed as accepting the terms and conditions? Possibly, but I think you'd probably need to call it out in the wording. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. Thanks so much to the person who submitted that in. I remember years ago when I was managing big events to Ireland, so huge contracts, a thing came up. So we always requested that the customer signed, and then a thing came up legally at the time where it was said that the customer could write back and say, I accept the enclosed conditions via email. That's an instruction that I actually got from a legal person. I can tell you I didn't follow the instruction because I would have been just so nervous that, somebody could say, it wasn't Mary who wrote that email, it was John, and he didn't know what he was doing. So for me, I want the signature. Yeah, no, I would like to have the signature. So it's kind of interesting to know that I got that advice for a legal person, but me personally, I like to make sure that all my T's are crossed, my I's are dotted, that I'm running a house, literally a house, and in your cases, houses, homes, cottages, that is totally in order, so I prefer to have the signature. Yeah.
Okay. So
okay, are we okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I'm right, Amanda, I have 4 minutes to get through this last topic. So
that's right.
Time to get my skates on. How to communicate your offer. So we're going to look, this has been a difficult year for a lot of people, but hasn't the domestic market they've risen to the challenge as well, for the most part. There's been great feedback. I've heard my friends find areas in Ireland that they'd never gone to before. There's been a real sense of discovery. And I would really like to emphasize that, of course, self-catering has an immense role to play within that discovery of customers, domestic and international, across the island of Ireland. But let's look now to maybe to the future and little tips for growing revenue. So look, I am the business. I decide how I want to grow my revenue. I decide how I want to distribute my inventory. So there are 3 key ways to grow revenue. I can go via, sell via sales channels. So today we looked at sales channels, direct customers, or an indirect customers, of course, a direct sales channel, the customer is coming directly to me. Indirect sales channels, say, for example, via a reseller, the online travel agent. In this case, the customer is coming via an intermediary. So I always think of that a bit like a double bridge, okay? So I can decide which channels I would like to work with. The customers can come to me via markets. So in the domestic market, maybe I'm based in Cork or maybe I'm based in Galway, and I might think about building up my customers within a certain radius, say 50 kilometres or 100 kilometres. My local market, how could I get them to book me now? And I think of solutions around that. How could I go beyond that into other other counties, them in Galway, how do I get those people in Dublin now overbooking me, or people down in Limerick? How would they come up my way? So I think of strategies around that. How could I get people across the island of Ireland, so the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, to book me? How could I reach those guys in Northern Ireland? How could I get them to know that I'm here so that they book me? And then global markets, how would I reach those? And is it easy for me to do that? The US, the Great Britain, the France, the German markets. And could I reach those people easily? Or for that market, do I need to rely on a reseller like an online travel agent? These are decisions that I need to make there. So an indirect sales channel. Customer segments, really important. Who am I going after? The holiday maker? Do I want the couples? Do I want the families? Do I want the soft adventurers? Who am I going after? What's the profile of the person I'm looking for? So these are the three things we can target to grow revenue. That's what we need to think about first. Sales channels, markets, customer types. What are we after? The tools for growing revenue, there are many, but I'll summarize these ones, the key ones: sales, proactive and reactive. So proactive, I go after a lead and I bring it to conversion. In other words, I go after a lead, I find it, I identify this is a good lead. God, there's a whole cohort of people in Limerick there and they're part of this association. I'm going to target them with my offer in Galway or wherever I am in Ireland. And I'm going to aim to bring that lead to conversion. That's proactive. Reactive. Reactive is when, I go after the lead in Limerick. Gosh, those people in Limerick, they sent me an inquiry. Now, proactive has generated a lead that becomes an inquiry. Reactive, I need to reply to that inquiry. My reactive strategy needs to be professional, friendly, swift. I reply on the day or within 24 hours, or that person could just say, jeepers, there's nobody out there, they're not answering me, I'll go look somewhere else. So we've given you some examples for today, how you might manage those communications back to the customer. Marketing, offline and online. I could decide to go offline. Maybe I could go to a brochure, radio, very expensive, or referral. So a customer comes and stays with me, they have an amazing time, and I say, jeepers, Jane, I'm so delighted you had an amazing time today. If you could tell all your friends and family, I'd be delighted. If you could put a review on TripAdvisor, sure, you'd make my day. And self-catering has the people who run these businesses, a lovely opportunity to create a camaraderie and a tone like this that is in keeping with the business and the destination. Online, maybe through websites, through social media, and I see some of the self-catering businesses doing super work on the likes of Instagram and Facebook, or maybe through e-zines, okay? CRM and database management, so people, again, it's a bit like clauses, tend to go back into their shell when they hear this word, but let's just say I'm interested in building up my direct customers. Well, then I need, on the basis that they have, consciously opted into this, to record their data, their names, maybe their email addresses, so that I can reach out to them. So lots of businesses in Ireland, just to make you aware, do this by a very simple Excel sheet that's password controlled so that the data is protected. Other businesses have more sophisticated, digital systems for doing this, but lots of businesses are doing this with a very simple Excel sheet. And that way then they can map out the kind of customers who are coming on a regular basis and are part of the business. I like to think of those customers, my business, family or club. And let's just say I end up having a lot of availability in November. Well, now I have a database, my lovely club, that I can send out communications to and let them know about an offer that's available, at the last minute. And because they're part of my family or club, they're most likely to be warm to that offer. So this is probably one of my last slides. So I know we're into the last minute now. How would I think about creating this plan? Well, I would know my resources. What time do I have available to me? What finances do I have available to me? If I'm a one self-catering business, I'm not going to invest in the radio. That would make no sense. What human resources do I have available to me? This is really important. How much time? Then I need to ask myself, what's my skill set? What do I know? I'm amazing at welcoming these customers. My house is totally always in order. I get such feedback on how clean and how welcoming and inviting it is. I need a bit of work though on contractual clauses. So we're clear on what we know and what we understand. I'm amazing at writing the replies back to customers. I'm not so good at lead generation though. Maybe that's something I could get better on. We're aware of what we know and what we need to know. Once we've established these two pieces, we can identify where we can bring our business to market. So for example, as we said there, sales channels, markets and segments. I would always be in favor of setting targets and KPIs. So this year I made 30,000. Next year, I'm going to aim for 38,000. That means I need to do something to up that turnover. So maybe something like proactive selling, or maybe engaging with an OTA to bring in other kind of customer types. So set a target because it keeps you focused on a goal. I need to choose my route for reaching that customer. So maybe it is through social media, an inexpensive way to reach our customers, or through a communication from a database. I send them out a lovely email. Maybe I'm such good friends with my customers at Christmas time, I write them a card. Imagine seeing that come through your door if we've got a special relationship. I make sure, you can see, hopefully you can see I'm following arrows around here. I make sure to celebrate your services and your destination. So think about what we said, the things to do there, and you'd have an immense opportunity to draw the customer, both domestic and international, into your world, the kind of stuff you love to do and see in your area, the kind of places you like to shop, the local fish store, the grocery store. Spread the money around in your local economy. Make sure your customers have a good time. Positive word of mouth, repeat business. We've said that enough today. And remember that clause that we have in the contractual document, encouraging customers that if they do have something that they perceive as being a complaint or something out, that they tell you straight away so you can remedy that. And then once we get that flow going, we can go, okay, now I've nailed OTA contracts. What's the next opportunity for me here? And we build and we grow. And guys, we press the last button and all of that repeats over and over again, creating a cycle, a flow of business through your properties. So I think, Amanda.
Julie, thank you very much. We've had so many questions throughout. We don't have time for any further questions, but I suppose just one point I do want to add to you when you were talking about building that business. It's important to note, I think, that the Irish Self-Catering Federation is relaunching its Let's Go Catering website, which allows customers to book direct. So that's a great way to start to add a presence or accelerate your presence for the domestic market and balance that inventory, as we're saying. So thanks very much for that. Julie, you're a fountain of knowledge, and I know that there will be people who want to kind of go through this at their own pace again. So we will be sending the recording out, as I said, along with the PowerPoint slides and that great guidance document on a template for people to use and to repurpose as they see fit, and of course run it by their own legal advisor. So just to wrap up, I'm conscious of time. A huge thanks to the Quality and Standards team of Fáilte Ireland for their support in planning today. Particular thanks to Nicola O'Riordan, who's the Fáilte Ireland Relationship Manager with the Self-Catering Federation, and to Jean Smith today for her part in opening the event. I'd also like to highlight a huge thanks to the Self-Catering Federation team, led by Jacinta Dolan as chair, for all their support. And if there's other questions you need guidance on that we weren't able to address today, please feel free to route them through to your federation, and we would be happy to do our best to help you answer those. Thanks to Colette and the team at Razor Social for keeping the technology on and moving for us today. Thanks to my colleague Michael in Enterprise Development for managing the audience questions to me. And again, a final thanks to you, Julie, as our expert speaker today. And it just leaves me to thank the audience for their such high engagement rates on the webinar today. And also just to draw your attention that if you need any further information on business supports, we have a huge amount of support information on our COVID-19 Fáilte Ireland hub there, and you'll see a lot of those supports tailored for all the individual sectors, including self-catering. So that's there for you, from finance to HR, sales and marketing to government support, as well as lots of free access to training and development and online courses for you and your staff, maybe while during the off season, as you prepare and keep skills refreshed for ahead of next season. But I suppose in light of there being a domestic and home market, I'm hoping that a lot of you will have great success in capturing some business over the Christmas season when the county only restrictions lift. So just on behalf of all of us in Fáilte Ireland, to wish all of you a very success in reopening your business this week or in next season, whenever you choose to do that. And we hope today has given you greater confidence in how to tackle and manage your contracts to allow you to operate safely and to offer your client that optimal reassurance under your contract terms and conditions as we continue to navigate living with COVID. On behalf of myself and the team at Fáilte Ireland, can I take this opportunity to wish you all a safe and happy Christmas, and here's to a strong recovery in 2021. Slán agus beannacht.